I just drove 4 hours and realized I forgot to bring my tree stand. I also didn't bring a saddle. But what I did bring is some rope. I want to show you how to make a quick and hasty, semi-comfortable saddle. We're gonna make a saddle out of the rope. It's not very comfortable, but it's a nice in-between in these kind of situations where you just made a mistake, or maybe you just decide, hey, there's a nice patch of woods. I know there's game out there. I'm gonna go do an evening sit, and you have some rope. You can implement this. It's called the double bowline. Double bowline. I'm gonna show you how to tie it, how to implement it, and just kind of a little reenactment on how I've used this in the past. So check it out. Might come in handy one day. I don't have a tree stand. I don't have a saddle. I don't want to sit on the ground. So what's the happy in between? Get yourself about 30 foot of rope and do this. Last year, I was out with a buddy who runs his own company, Authentic Endeavors. He was hunting at a tree, and he had studied the game and the habits, and they always come in front. And he was really good at shooting from the ground. So his plan was just to sit here. When he sees the game, just raise his bow and shoot. Issue was, they ended up behind him. And as he tried to get up, I'll think about how much movement is involved with getting up. Just how we normally get up. So I have forward movement, my head goes down, and my butt comes up. The big issue with that is that if, I can see maybe we're on a hill, and I can see the deer head or the quarry, whatever we're hunting. As I lift my butt up, my head goes down, I lose sight of the animal, and I become more visible because my butt's in the air. That's one. Two, we have lateral and vertical movement. So I'm going down and up with my head, my butt's coming up. So we got all this motion and then a turn. Now we got lateral movement. It's just a lot of movement. So with this setup, once you get your distance right, I can just lean back and then straighten my legs. And that way, I only have vertical movement, and I can stay behind my tree. And there's a lot less points of contact. Think about as I'm sitting on the ground, to get up, I need to move my foot once and place it in a new position, turn over. Now my knee's on the ground in a new location. Maybe there's a branch. Now I have two chances that I just broke a branch. My hand, that's 3, 4. Bring my foot up, that's 5. That's 5 steps, that's 5 opportunities to rev a leaf the wrong way, break a twig, grind some rocks. It's 5 chances to make noise. Versus here, when I'm ready to move, I'm putting my feet against the tree, and it's very easy. There you go. Now my sight's ready. Just where my heels might end up. So I can just place my feet on the tree, straighten the legs, 1, 2. Draw and shoot, whatever you're using. So when we secure this system, if you happen to have your tree harness, your safety harness strapped to the tree, that's what I have here. You can just tie a knot into your rope, carabiner, and hook it onto this belt, or just tie it to the belt, if you have it. It's a little difficult to get the gauge right if you're not good with knots, because you got to make quite a few adjustments before you find a nice, perfect height for your rope. So that's option 1. Option 2 is you just tie your rope around the tree. Option 3 is I just have some limbs that are cut here, and I just wrap around the limbs. No knots, just friction hitches. And the friction hitch, just you wrap something around like a rough surface enough times, it stores tension and friction. So like you're not going to go anywhere. There's no knots in this. Right here there is. But around the tree, it's just wrapped around the branch a couple times. Now this is not the most comfortable setup by any means. If I were to tuck my jacket behind or in between the rope and my body, let's see how much more comfortable that would be. Now it's going to restrict my movement a little bit, but it'll also keep my jacket secure. So as I'm moving, the jacket doesn't maybe sway open and catch the animal's eye. Oh, this is not bad at all, at least for the first few seconds. Oh, this is nice, actually. Let me show you how to tie this. Look in the video description below. There's a link for how I tie the bowline. It's a little unusual. It's not how most people tie it, but I prefer that method. It's easier to remember. I'm going to tie a double bowline. You want a little more than you think you need. I'll use these 2 fingers like I'm smoking a cigarette. That way I can reach as far as possible. I'll do the same thing over here. And just get as much as you can. I'm going to add about a foot. and give it a bend. Now you're going to tie a bowline with this, but just treat this as if it's one piece of rope. Ignore that it's two, just pretend it's one. I got my bend or my bite at the end. I'm going to work my way back down to where my tag end is. This is where we're going to work. All right. So first thing I do, I'm going to create a loop and then put a bend in here and put it through my loop I just made. Get a bend here and put it through my loop. Okay. Make sure this doesn't come all the way through. It needs to stay on the outside. Okay. Now what we have is a double slip knot. Then you get your other loop or bend. You're going to feed it through. Now here's where you need to pay attention. I find it's a little better to have a little bit longer leg loops than the back loop. Just the way the weight distributes greatly changes with this step here. So if I was tiny, tiny, tiny with huge legs, itty bitty waist and huge legs, this would be for my legs, this would be for my waist, but that's not real. So I'm going to give myself something like that. And I'm going to measure it, and they should be roughly the same length. Okay? Roughly. I want the back to be a little bit shorter. And plus, once I pull tension on this, the back strap is going to get even shorter. So this single loop is your backrest, and this double is your leg rest. So once I pull tension, okay, snaps into place, and there we have our 3 loops. Now this goes on, just like a climbing harness. I'll grab the back part and a leg, put one leg through. And then on this side, I'll grab the other leg loop and the back and step through both. Put them on like a awkward pair of underwear. I've already learned putting this around your jacket is substantially more comfortable. Okay. Now again, depending on what you'll be doing, you may want to adjust the tension on this. This seems to work for me in this setting. Pretty loose legs. Okay. Next, I'm going to pull tension. Yes, this feels good. Then all I need to do is tie a knot in here. Just think of knots that are not going to be super hard to untie. And understand you're not yanking on this, so you're not going to create so much tension in this knot that it's impossible to untie. Shouldn't be super heavy. There we go. Whew, it is cold. Have my bow maybe hanging on a tree here, maybe in my hand, maybe leaning on the tree. You do what's best for you. But in the meantime, happy hunting and stay alive as long as you can.